This conference will now be recorded.
It is recorded. Good morning, everyone. We will. Can you hear me?
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes,
Morning,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, we'll start with
Morning, ma'am.
any time with molecular biology today. So I'll be giving a brief review of already you have finished the DNA structure. So we will be starting with DNA replication today. So we will start with this is our SLO, specific learning objective. We'll just review the DNA structure, describe what was the Watson-Crick model of the DNA structure and how it is organized into chromosomes. And then today we'll be dealing mainly with the salient features of what are the DNA replication, enumerate the DNA polymerase and Okazaki pieces, describe the DNA repair mechanisms and diseases that are associated with the repair, describe the telomere and the telomerase, and explain the role of inhibitors of DNA replication. Okay. So as you have seen that the Watson-Crick model of the DNA structure, it consists of two strands of two deoxyribonucleotide strands, which are wound in a right-handed helical structure. And the backbone of this double helical structure is formed by the sugar and phosphates, while the bases will be present in the perpendicular axis. The pitch of this DNA helical structure is 3.4 nanometers, and the distance between each of these bases is 0.34 nanometers, while the width of the helix varies between 1.9 to 2 nanometers. And then this helical structure, it has two anti-parallel strands. One is them is in the 5' to 3' direction. Another is in the 3' to 5' direction. And other than that, this helical structure, DNA helix, also has two grooves, one major groove and another is a minor groove. A major groove and a minor groove. And the importance of this major and minor groove is that it is here at this point that the proteins will interact with the bases that are exposed. Some of the bases here will get exposed at these groups. So proteins will interact in these groups with the bases. Then here base pairing rule will be followed, where adenine will be complemented with that of thymine, and cytosine will be combining, or the complementary base pair for cytosine will be guanosine. And all these base pairs will be connected together by hydrogen bonds. So the hydrogen bonds will keep the bases in position. And here on the right side, you see here, what is this? This is the how a polynucleotide chain is formed. Polydeoxyribonucleotide chain is formed here between one base and another base. So here you can see this is the ribose molecule and a phosphate sugar, phosphate molecule here. The phosphate of the first sugar molecule, this is at the 3 position. The third hydroxyl group will combine with the fifth hydroxyl group of the next deoxyribonucleotide to form the, so in the process pyrophosphate will be released, and this is forming the phosphodiester linkages. What we call as the phosphodiester linkages are formed over here. Then, as I told you, 2 hydrogen bonds will be present between adenine and thymine, and 3 between cytosine and guanine. And this CG bond will always be stronger than the AT bond. And 2 strands will run in anti-parallel direction, one strand in the 5' to 3', and while the others run in 3' to 5' direction. Now this this DNA strands, this double helical strand, what they will do, they will wrap around twice around the histone octamer. That means 8 molecules of histones, histone proteins, they will be together wrapped around by this DNA helical strand. And this histones which are participating in this forming, wrapping around, is histone 2, histone 3, and histone 4. So histone 1 does not come into the picture. And this one DNA wraps around the histone octamer, it forms a nucleosome. So what is forming is, once it wraps around, is forming a formation of a nucleosome. Now this histone molecules or proteins, they are 5 classes: H1, H2A, B, 3, and 4. So H1 is the one that is only loosely associated with DNA, while all the remaining other histones are called as the core histones. So some of them are lysine rich, that is histone B, 2AA and 2B, while 3 and 4 are arginine rich molecules. Now this histone also gets modified by acetylation. It can get modified by methylation or by phosphorylation. This phosphorylation of the histone 2B, it is also associated with the S phase of the cell cycle. Now here you have seen, this is the DNA double helix helical structure, which is only of 2 nanometers. Once the nucleosomes are found, when the DNA winds round the histone octamer, they form nucleosome which becomes 10 nanometers in diameter. Now around 6 fibers of these nucleosomes, they will wrap still more around, they condense themselves, wrapping still more around, will go to form chromatin fibrils, so that it becomes 30 nanometers in diameter. Now this chromatin fibrils in turn undergo more condensation to form extended chromosomes. These extended chromosomes later on, they form ultimately they become the chromosomes, which you can see this chromosome is 1400 nanometers in diameter. Now in the high organisms, what will happen is DNA will be organized inside the nucleus. So double-stranded DNA is first wound around the histones to form the nucleosomes. Then 6 fibrils of nucleosome will form chromatins, which are nothing but long stretches of DNA in association with the histones. Then this chromatin, when it becomes condensed, it forms the chromosome. Then there are also extra chromosomal DNA. These include the plasmids, which are found mostly in the bacteria and other organisms. So supercoiling in high organism, linear DNA will be twisted around their own axis. So they form a supercoil. And this relaxation of the supercoil occurs with the help of some enzymes that are known as topoisomerases, which are of 2 types, type 1 and type 2 topoisomerase. Then these bases that are present in the DNA may also undergo modifications, mainly in the form of methylation. So this methylation may occur with cytosine to form 6-methyl cytosine, or with adenine to form 6-methyl adenine. So this methylation, what does it do? It condenses and represses the activity. Methylation, it condenses and represses the activity, while demethylation, it will lead to transcriptional activation. Now this methylation has been used to identify the parental strand of the DNA during the cell replication. Now inactivation of the DNA occurs during differentiation. So as we know that all the human cells, they are derived only from a single cell, that is a zygote. So all of the cells will contain the same genetic information. But of the 100% of the DNA, about 90% of the DNA will be permanently inactive. That means only 10% of the DNA in a body will be active. And this histones and specific proteins help in inactivation process. And this in turn helps in differentiation. What do you mean by differentiation? Differentiation is that even though all our human cells are derived from a single cell zygote, but in a body we have different cells, like from the cells from the gastrointestinal GIT, or from the lung, or from the spleen. Each of the cells from each different organs will be different. That is occurring as a result of differentiation. So differentiation is a process that is occurring in a body. So about 10% of the human DNA, they contain genes, while the rest of them are silent areas. And the segment of the gene coding for proteins are called as exons. So these are the regions that are containing the active regions, that are exons that code for proteins. While in between exons, there are silent areas that are known as the introns or intervening areas. Now the primary transcript, they contain these intron sequences, which later they are removed to produce the mature RNA. In a mature RNA, exons are there, introns are there. So when introns are removed, the primary transcript is converted into a mature RNA. Now introns, they do not get translated. Then we have to spoken about introns and exons. What is a cistron? Cistron is nothing but is a unit of genetic expression, where it is said to be the biochemical counterpart of a gene of the classical genetics. And one cistron is supposed to code for one polypeptide chain. Now, what is the replication of DNA? What happens is that during the cell division, each daughter cell will get an exact copy of the genetic information from the mother cell. The process of copying the DNA is known as DNA replication. In the daughter cell, one strand is derived from the mother cell, while the other strand is newly synthesized. So what we are saying is, during the course of cell division, the daughter cells will get the exact copy of the genetic information of the mother cell. And then the whole of the DNA, the copying of the DNA is known as DNA replication. And in the daughter cell, one strand will be derived from the mother cell, while the other strand will be newly synthesized. So this is known as semi-conservative type of DNA replication. So each strand serves as a template or mold over which a new complementary strand will get synthesized. So one strand from the mother cell will remain, while a new strand will be synthesized based on the strand from the mother, which is said to be a template strand. So here you can see, even though theoretically we say it's conservative replication, actually what is happening is a semi-conservative replication, where you can see this is a red and a yellow of a parental strand. So each daughter strand will get one strand for the mother, while the green represents the newly synthesized complementary strand. The red and yellow represent the template strands, and these green represent the complementary strands that are synthesized in the daughter cells. This semi-conservation of the DNA or replication was proven by Mendelssohn-Stahl experiment, where bacteria were first grown in a medium containing heavy isotope of nitrogen, that is 15N, and where all the DNA were labeled with this heavy nitrogen. Then these cells were allowed to divide into a medium containing normal nitrogen, that is 14N. So what happened was that in the first generation, it was found that all the DNA molecules were only half labeled. But in the second generation, half labeled and completely unlabeled molecules were also present in equal numbers. So from this experiment, it was proved that the DNA replication is semi-conservative in vivo, and the base pairing will always be maintained. Base pairing rule will always be maintained. What is the base pairing rule? That adenine will combine with the thymine and guanine will combine with cytosine. And the hydrogen bonds also will be similar, 2 and 3. Now, for what are the salient features of replication? So here you can see that each strand will serve as a template over which new complementary strand is synthesized. So this is the parental strands, and these are the complementary strands that are being synthesized. So base pairing rule with adenine with thymine and G2C will be maintained. Then what you require, polymerization of the new strand will be taking place from 5' to 3' direction. And both the strands will be replicated. So what is the origin of replication here? The DNA replication, it starts with the recognition of the site of the origin of replication. So this recognition of the site is done by a complex that is known as origin recognition complex, or ORC. And the origin of replication in the bacteria and in the mammal varies. The origin of replication in the bacteria is known as ORI, while in the higher organism, they are called as replicators. These replicators will contain certain base sequences called the origin replication element. Now, what are the components of the DNA replisome? At first, we'll see what is a replisome. The complex of enzyme proteins and other factors that are required for DNA replication is called as replisome. So that means whatever the requirements are there for replication to occur, this we call it as a replisome. So what does the replication require? It needs the participation of more than 20 enzymes and proteins, which are collectively called as DNA replicase system or replisomes. Now, the important components are the protein A or DNA A binds at specific sites of origin and opens the duplex, while the relief of the supercoil, they require topoisomerases. So you have protein A or DNA A binding a specific site to open the duplex. Then you have topoisomerases for relieving of the supercoil. Then you have helicase or DNA B that helps in separating of the strands, and they utilize the energy from the hydrolysis of ATP. Now the helicase will move in both the direction, separating the strands in advance of replication. So when the helicase act, they form a replication bubble with two replication forks. So I'll be showing you in the figure what that is. And then single stranded binding proteins also you require to stabilize the complex. So here you can see these are the two strands of antiparallel strands of the DNA, and you can see this is an initiator protein, so you require protein initiator also, which binds to specific sequences of the DNA in order to initiate the replication. So and then what will we said? We said DNA A will help in separating of the duplex strand, while DNA B will, or helicase, it separates the strands of DNA. So although and here one more important thing what you have to see, the unwinding will occur from both the ends. So in the previous figure, if you see, we are mostly we show the sign, we don't show the replication bubble, we are showing only one end, but actually replication will be occurring from both the replication will start from both the points. So here separation of the DNA strands will be occurring from both the places. So helicase, one helicase will act from this side to form one replication fork. Another helicase will act from this side to separate this strands to form another replication fork. So helicase separate the strands of DNA by utilizing energy from the hydrolysis of ATP. Topoisomerases, we said, they are for relief of the supercoil, and they are type 1 and type 2. So type 1 will act by making a transient break in one strand of the DNA, and it is immediately resealed after the coiling, while type 2 acts by introducing the double-stranded breaks. Rotation occurs, and then the breaks will be resealed. There is another type of topoisomerase that is known as gyrase. It is a bacterial type of topoisomerase which acts only on closed circular DNA, which are found mainly in bacteria. Now, once this unwinding by the helic is occurring, so this is a formation of a replication bubble. And with the replication bubble, what you can see, it has forks. There'll be two forks, one fork here on the one side. So what we are saying here, this is fork 1 or fork 2, whichever you can say, fork 1 and fork 2. Two forks will be formed at the same time. And so each replication fork contains DNA helicase, which unwinds a short region of the DNA helix. So one helicase will unwind from this end, another helicase will unwind from the other end. Then you need primase that initiate the synthesis of a short RNA segment. So again, primase you'll require for this strand, and you'll require primase for this strand. Two, which will synthesize a short segment or RNA segment that is known as the primer. Then DNA polymerase enzyme that synthesizes the new strand of DNA. So synthesis of the new strand will occur with the help of this DNA polymerase enzyme, and DNA is prevented from recoiling by single-stranded binding proteins. So here the single-stranded binding proteins, here you can see they prevent it from, they help to keep the strands separate. Then what is this DNA polymerase? So DNA polymerase, it synthesizes a new complementary strand of DNA by incorporating deoxynucleotide monophosphates sequentially in 5' to 3' direction. So additional of this new nucleotide bases will occur only in the 5' to 3' direction in both the strands. So making use of single-stranded DNA as a template. Now there is a difference between bacterial DNA polymerases and the mammalian polymerases. Those students who are leaving continuously, they are joining for a few minutes and they're leaving the class, action will be taken against those particular students. They are just coming for the class, coming for 1 or 2 seconds, and then they are leaving that. Don't think that attendance will be given to you. Bacterial DNA polymerases, in bacteria there are 5 polymerases, and this DNA polymerase 1 was isolated first by the scientist Arthur Kornberg, that's why it's also known as the Kornberg enzyme. So this was isolated from E. coli, and the function of this DNA polymerase 1 is that it is a repair enzyme. So this repair enzyme, it has DNA polymerase 1, it has both 3' to 5' and 5' to 3' exonuclease activities. So when this 5' to 3' exonuclease domain is removed, the remaining fragment, it retains the polymerization and proofreading activity. So then it is called as the clinofragment. So when that after exonuclease domain is removed, then becomes a clinofragment. And this fragment has been widely used in recombinant DNA technology. Other than that, you have another important enzyme, that is DNA polymerase 3. This is the main enzyme that is involved in replication in bacteria. So it has beta, gamma, delta, and delta dash units. There are other type of polymerase were also identified, but here we are concerned mainly now with DNA polymerase 1, which is a repair enzyme, and DNA polymerase 3, which is the main replication enzyme in bacteria. Then you have mammalian polymerase also. Here they are this eukaryotic DNA polymerases are 5 in number. They are alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon. So alpha polymerase is a major enzyme responsible for chromosome replication. While and this enzyme, what it will do, it will polymerize about 100 nucleotides per second. And another important function of this alpha polymerase is that, or major function, what you can say, is that it has primase activity. This enzyme is responsible for synthesis of the DMA primer. And this alpha polymerase, it has 4 subunits. While beta DNA polymerase, it is involved in repair. Gamma DNA polymerase is present only in the mitochondria. So it is involved in mitochondrial DNA synthesis. And then if you see here, delta enzyme is used both for leading and lagging strand synthesis. And epsilon is mainly for leading strand synthesis, and even that the function of this epsilon is not very clear. So here we can say, we said that bacterial enzymes, what are important? DNA polymerase 1, which is involved in repair, and DNA polymerase 3, that is involved in replication. While for eukaryotic, alpha polymerase 1, which is responsible for primase, beta for repair, and it is delta mainly that is concerned with replication for both leading and lagging strand. Although epsilon, it is not very clear, the role of epsilon. So in RNA primer, which is required for the DNA synthesis, it is about 100 to 200 nucleotide long, will be synthesized by the RNA primers on both the template strands. Then the RNA primer will be removed by DNA polymerase using the exonuclease activity and will be replaced by deoxyribonucleotides by DNase. How that is occurring, I'll show you. Now, under the influence of the DNA polymerase, so what we have said now, we have separation of the DNA strand is occurring with the helicase enzyme. DNA A and B is also helping in, A is helping in that, and B is the main helicase that is separating both the strands. Formation of replication bubble, formation of forks, forks on two ends, and then what you have got the DNA primer, RNA primer now. So what is next you require is the synthesis of the complementary strand. So under the influence of this DNA polymerase, the 3' hydroxyl group of the N nucleotide of a deoxyribonucleotide, it combines with the 5' phosphate group of the mu nucleotide, deoxynucleotide. So to the end of the primer, what will happen? A new deoxyribonucleotide will be brought by the DNA polymerase, and it will combine the 3' hydroxyl group of this new nucleotide with the 5' hydroxyl group of the 3' hydroxyl group of the previous nucleotide and the 5' hydroxyl group of the new nucleotide. So the pyrophosphate is released when both these deoxynucleotides are formed from the triphosphate. This newly added nucleotide will now polymerize with another one, forming the next phosphodiester bond. So every time the DNA polymerase will go on adding the deoxyribonucleotides in the process for releasing a pyrophosphate and forming the phosphodiester bonds. So the phosphodiester bonds are forming between the 3' hydroxyl group of the N nucleotide and the 5' hydroxyl group of the new nucleotide. If adenine is present on the template, then what will happen on the complementary strand? Thymine will enter in that place. Thymine enters in that place in the newly synthesized DNA strand. So always a complementary base pair will be added in the complementary strand. So base pairing rule is always observed. Then the DNA polymerase carries out the sequential addition of each nucleotide complementary to one in the template strand. Is it clear so far for everyone? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
ma'am. So here you can see this is how this is the template strand. This is the addition of the nucleotides where you can see the 3' hydroxyl group being added, the 5' hydroxyl group being joined together to form the phosphodiester bond. And this is the pyrophosphate that is being released in the process. And here you can see here, this is the primase. Primase lead that this is the one single template strand. This is the 5' to 3' direction. This is the primase that is responsible for the synthesis of the RNA primer. Okay. So this RNA primer, when it is there, what will happen from this end? The DNA polymerase will go on adding the deoxyribonucleotides, causing the lengthening of the DNA strand. So DNA polymerase synthesizes the new strand of DNA by sequential addition of the deoxyribonucleotides and forming the phosphodiester bond. So a new DNA polymerase removes the RNA. So now what will happen to this RNA primer? In the end, what will happen? The RNA 1, what we said, or DNA polymerase 1, either in bacteria, or you can say the DNA polymerase beta, they will remove this RNA primer and replace it with DNA. With new DNA, then DNA ligase will join the ends. So sealing this, sealing the two strands. So daughter strand is now complete. But does this same thing happen both the strands? What we will see now is, now we will see both the strands here. So when this one strand is in 5' to 3' direction, other is in 3' to 5' direction. Now this synthesis of the strand will not be continuously, it won't be occurring. So what will happen? DNA synthesis is always in 5' to 3' direction, both the strands. The strand which is discontinuously synthesized is refers to as the lagging strand, otherwise called as the retrograde strand, and the continuously polymerized is known as the leading strand. So replication of the DNA will be taking place on both the strands simultaneously, but in small pieces of 100 to 250 nucleotides in length. So this discontinuous DNA synthesis produces the replication forks or replication bubbles. Both the strands are simultaneously replicated. So what we are saying, which is the lagging strand? Discontinuously synthesized. So the discontinuously synthesized one is known as the lagging strand. The way the continuous synthesis takes place, that is known as the leading strand. And at a time, only about 100 to 250 nucleotide length of strand will be synthesized. Then what do you mean by this Okazaki fragments? The small DNA molecule attached to its own primer RNA are called as Okazaki fragments. Several Okazaki fragments are produced. The synthesis along the lagging strand also takes place in 5' to 3' direction. As it moves, what will happen? The primase synthesizes short RNA primer to which deoxyribonucleotides are added by DNA polymerase. So this DNA alpha, we said, is synthesizes the RNA primer, which and the extension of that is occurring by DNA delta, DNA polymerase delta. So this delta has a main role in synthesis of both leading and the lagging strand. So alpha has primase activity, and DNA synthesis continues until the primer and the added Okazaki fragment is encountered. Then what will happen? DNA primer will be removed by DNA polymerase using exonuclease activity. So if you go back to the figure here, what we are saying here is that here, from here, we are saying that always synthesis of the new strand occurs from 5' to 3' end. So helicase will go on unwinding. As it goes on unwinding here, from this end, the deoxyribonucleotides will be being added in the leading strand. But here in this lagging strand, what will happen? First, the unwinding had taken place here. So this is the primer. So primer, after the RNA primer is here is formed, synthesis has taken place up in direction up till here, till the replication fork. Then again, synthesis will start with the new RNA primer, and the synthesis of the DNA strand will continue till it encounters this RNA primer. Is it clear what I'm trying to tell you? Here it is important for you to understand that the Okazaki fragment is not starting, synthesis won't start from here. The synthesis is starting from here. So this is the RNA primer, and synthesis that's taken place is stopped here. The second Okazaki fragment synthesis from the RNA primer will start here continue till it encounters the RNA primer. Again, this is the same way. So till it encounters the RNA primer, it will continue. Once all this synthesis is taken place in the replication bubble, what will happen? This RNA primer will be removed by exonuclease activity, and then new DNA will be synthesized to fill up this gap, and the gap will be sealed by DNA ligase. Now, what will happen to this newly synthesized DNA? The newly synthesized DNA will be rapidly arranged into nucleosomes, as I told you, by wrapping around the histone octamer, forming nucleosomes. And this is facilitated by the histone chaperone proteins and pattern remodeling complexes. But after the replication takes place, also some modification takes place. As I told you in the previous slide, methylation of cytosine and adenosine is taking place. So DNA methylation is C5 of cytosine, catalyzed by DNA methyltransferase, has been commonly associated with gene silencing. It contributes to the X chromosomal inactivation, genomic imprinting. So the gene methylation, we said it is associated with repression of the gene. Otherwise, if you want to say simply, it is association with repression or gene silencing, or you can say gene DNA inactivation. Demethylation will lead to transcriptional activation. So transcriptional regulation of tissue-specific genes during cellular differentiation also results from DNA methylation. And this methylation occurs mainly in the cytosine bonding rich areas in the promoter region, and this mode of expression is passed from one generation to the other generation. And the degree of methylation which occurs in the normal cells and cancer cells will be different. So one effect of the reactive oxygen species is through this hypermethylation process. Methylation, although it may be normal, it can also be, like I said, it may be seen in cancer cells also. So aberrant methylation is also observed in cellular senescence. That means when the cells grow old, you can see this aberrant methylation, and may also be age-related diseases such as in type 2 diabetes mellitus also. You can see this abnormal methylation of the bases taking place. Now, if you see, we will summarize what is the DNA, what has occurred. So, the origin of the replication, it has been identification of origin of replication either or in the mammals. The unwinding of the parental DNA to form a replication code. An RNA primer, complementary to the DNA template, will be synthesized by RNA primase. DNA synthesis is continuous in the leading strand towards the replication fork by the DNA polymerase, while DNA synthesis is discontinuous in the lagging strand away from the replication fork, as is the case with Okazaki fragments. Then elongation in both the strands takes place from 5' to 3' direction, and the RNA primers will be removed. The gaps will be filled by deoxyribonucleotides by the DNA polymerase, and the ligation of the pieces will occur by DNA ligase. Proofreading is done by the DNA polymerase. And finally, after forming the nucleosomes, it is condensed into chromatin and later on into chromosomes. So the main enzymes that are involved in replication are DNA polymerases, you have helicases, topoisomerases, DNA primase, single-stranded binding proteins, and DNA ligase. So there are some differences that are seen between the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic replication. So what are the differences that you see here? In the prokaryotic, you have circular DNA, while in eukaryotes, spelling is wrong, you have linear DNA. And In the origin, you have a single origin of replication in the prokaryotes, while here there are multiple sites of replication in eukaryotes. The single stranded binding proteins are seen in both. Then RNA primer is required for synthesis of both the strand here as well as in eukaryotes, and DNA alpha is responsible for the RNA primase synthesis in both leading and the lagging strands. While DNA polymerase the 3 is the male polymerase that is responsible for replication in prokaryotes, while it is mainly delta and to some extent epsilon in eukaryotes. Then proofreading activity in prokaryote DNA polymerase 3 also have 3' to 5' exonuclease activity, so that any wrong base can be removed and the correct one will be added. While this proofreading activity is by DNA polymerase delta and epsilon, both of them have 3' to 5' exonuclease activity, and therefore they also have the proofreading function. Then filling of the gap once the RNA primase is removed is per DNA polymerase. We said DNA polymerase 1 here, and here RNA primer will be removed by 2 other enzymes that are known as RNase H and FEN1 in the case of eukaryotes. While polymerase beta is involved in repair, that is in gap filling and in DNA repair. Repair will be by DNA, and then gap filling will be occurring, and sealing of the gap will occur by DNA ligase. Then there are also some inhibitors that affect the replication. In case of prokaryotes, ciprofloxacin and novobiosin, these are 2 antibiotics that inhibit the enzyme topoisomerase. While in case of eukaryotes, etoposide, adriamycin, and camptothecin, these are 3 drugs that will inhibit the topoisomerase in case of eukaryotes. So this is what I was just telling you also. These are also inhibitors of DNA replication. You can just say what I said is ciprofloxacin antibacterial agents, and then there are also anti-cancer agents here. What I said, ciprofloxacin, nalidixic acid, novobiosin also they will inhibit the bacterial DNA gyrase that is in the bacteria. Then anti-cancer agent like etoposide, adriamycin, doxorubicin, they will inhibit the topoisomerase, while 6-mercaptopurine will inhibit the human DNA polymerase, and 5-fluorouracil, this is also an anti-cancer drug that will inhibit the thymidylate synthase enzyme. I'll be showing you some videos now, so please don't leave. I'll be showing the videos to you. Video on here. Video on. First is the better. Windows Media Player better.
In this animation, we'll see the remarkable way our DNA is tightly packed up so that 6 feet of this long molecule fits into the microscopic nucleus of every cell. The process starts when DNA is wrapped around special protein molecules called histones. The combined loop of DNA and protein is called a histone.
only the 2 minutes
Next, the nuclear zones are packaged into a thread. The end result is a fiber known as chromatin. This fiber is then looped and coiled again. Leading finally to the familiar shapes known as chromosome, which can be seen in the nucleus of dividing cells. Chromosomes are not always present. They form around the time cells divide when the 2 copies of the cell's DNA need to be separated.
మీటింగ్ క్లోజ్ చేయాలి అంటే ఏం చేయాలి? మీటింగ్ క్లోజ్ చేయాలి అంటే ఏం చేయాలి?
మాట్లాడతారు మనం అందరం. ఈ పక్కన.
So we will end the class now. Was it clear to you, the class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So any doubts will you me tomorrow I'll be okay.